So yeah, so I mean, let's flow with this. I mean, it'd be great to hear where everyone's coming from, where you're tuning in from the world. I mean, liberation has really spread I mean, I've only been involved with it for some time, but it's pretty brilliant to see how fast and how wide it's spreading to all the corners of the planet. Just to give a bit of a context of why I'm here, for those of you who don't know me, I was connected with Adam not too long ago through Alexandra, the South African connections. I'm having a lot of connections in South Africa in this time. And, my path has led me to, many accelerated tools. And I feel like we're at a time and space in our history where the accelerated path and the accelerated tools that are available are becoming more readily widespread. And in my view, liberation is another form of this, in the sense of a tool in which is for one who truly desires truth above all else, and not to meddle in the thicket of the new age, the forest of the new age, or all these other concepts and things in which can provide, obviously, what we're looking for, but also can provide distraction. So, liberation, it was a funny story, actually. When I first saw liberation, it was through a picture. And the picture started working on me through the dreams. The connection to liberation just occurred through the picture. And it was quite obvious to me that it was already doing the work. And it wasn't too long after that the bottle was received, and I started working with it. And so that evolved into some of my connections with Adam and the team, and here today I just wanted to be in a space of holding space for the inquiry of how deep and the rabbit hole goes with liberation, not only as a physical remedy but as an energy and as an essence. And I think Adam really carries that well. So Adam, it's great to have you here on this call. I know we're kind of crossing networks here. A lot of my people are on this, and I'm really interested in what the work you've been doing. And so, from what I've connected with you, I mean, firstly, you're a very heart oriented soul. Just from the first time I met you, it's been great to connect with that. And also hearing about your history, being a homeopathic doctor and practicing in that space. And then just your wealth of knowledge when it comes to this kind of, I wouldn't even call it alchemy, but it's an evolved form of approach to, vibrational remedies. Maybe for people that don't know who you are, to give some context on, your path and your work, and, how it's led you to kind of this moment today in this call.
Okay. Sure. It's a long story. Well, the core of it is, as I said, I started trained as a homeopath about 17 years ago, but before that I was interested in herbal medicine. But what I've learned through homeopathy is to bring the most rapid and gentle format of healing possible. But what also struck me was that, it's a little bit like throwing peas in the ocean. You just start throwing the peas in the ocean and you get a little bit and you help and you help and you help, but there's just a sea of people out there and there's so much work to be done. So, I mean, liberation for me represents a substance which can actually go in there for everyone and start to unravel a lot of the, I don't even want to say the word damage, but I mean, often it is damage. It's like the trauma of the past that we've all been exposed to. And, the beauty of this substance, I also remember there's more substance because it's a combination of substances, is that it's gone way beyond my initial expectations. I mean, I had high expectations for it in the beginning, but it's gone way beyond that, which is very exciting when it's almost like the child has grown into a giant and now the giant is walking the land. That's what this thing has become. I mean, I launched this in January and now it's all over the world and the website hasn't even launched. We're due to launch this week, hopefully. Yeah, hopefully by Wednesday with a bit of luck. But I mean, it's grown exponentially, which is beautiful to see because people have just taken it with all their disciplines and apply wherever they're doing the work, whether it's meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference where people are working with it, but it's amplifying all of their disciplines, which is fascinating. I mean, coming back to that original question, my thing was really to find something that would kind of take the place of what I do in a sense so that I could kind of retire a bit, because I don't then have to be there every moment with every patient. I started actually giving my patients liberation because I was like, well, this is going to clear a lot of the stuff and then whatever's left we can actually work with. And that's pretty much what's been happening because because it does so much of the work. I mean, it's a, it's a very complicated substance in itself, and it represents probably, like the 50 years of the fires burning, and then the year of the making of the novel oak. Now, I'll go into that in a sec, and then all my experience. So probably about 60, 70 years of like experience in this is really distilled in this, which is quite exciting because it represents not just my learning, but the learning of many people, and it's bringing that in real time to this experience, which is quite exciting because it's not just like a vitamin C supplement, which is taken, it's distilled, you take it, and it goes through. This is something that it actually moves into the entire body and starts to unravel all sorts of stuff. I mean, that's why I started the group, was just to see what it's working on, how it's working with people. I remember this one woman had this cookie, and on the cookie was written redemption, right? And then she ate the cookie of redemption, and like through this actual eating of this substance, it allowed her to process what liberation needed to process. I mean, there's so many stories. There's literally thousands of stories on the testimonials. You'll see it. But so I mean, I guess my path has been always to bring everything to its fullest expression. And with homeopathy, I've taken it and I've moved beyond that. I mean, this is not a homeopathic remedy. It has homeopathic roots. I've come from homeopathic roots. I've moved beyond that. I've moved into the more esoteric alchemical formats of manipulation of matter, directly and indirectly, to amplify these substances. Now, I'm not going to go into the exact detail of how I do it, because obviously this is my personal discovery, but what it basically is, I mean, if you were to visualize an atom, there's a lot of space in the atom. There are a couple of neutrons and protons flowing around. This is not a direct model. This is an example of what I'm doing. But within that, there's a lot of space within that. So a lot of that space is not filled. So what I've tried to do with what I've done is to literally fill the space, like you're coloring in that molecule to make it thick, to make it dense with vibration, so that when it goes into the body, it like has a dramatic effect on all the structures, from the more dense to the more subtle and everything in between. That's why it's able to go back into the past and dig up the memories around old relationships or dysfunctional childhood memories and bring them to conclusion, to allow people to have these dreams where they meet the person, they have an encounter, and they're able to let go of the memory associated with that encounter by interacting with people in their dreams. Now what exactly is going on there is anyone's business. I mean, it's everyone else's subconscious. I mean, I've looked at it in my subconscious, but really somehow the combination of the substance allows the mind to present itself with its trauma, and in a relaxed space is able to then deal with it. So in a very real sense, this remedy is conspiring for everyone's highest good. I mean, it sounds a bit cheesy, but it really is absolutely true. I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself before I hit liberation, and I thought I was pretty clean. I thought I was pretty hot shit, yeah? But when I took liberation, it amplified that even further. It cleared so much of the residual stuff that I hadn't even considered to be traumatic memory. It worked essentially through everything from old relationships, family interactions, old friends, fears for the future even. It worked on those. Some of the fears I had for the future, it played those out. I was able to watch the fears for the future, experiencing them on a cellular level. So I'd wake up in fear, but having felt it, I could let it go. This is the real gift of liberation. Well, one of the gifts of liberation. The other day, someone was telling me that they have incredible trouble sleeping. They take liberation and they have beautiful sleep. I mean, I hadn't anticipated for that. In fact, often it keeps people awake. But the range of action of this remedy is still being discovered. It's kind of like a grating. I don't know what that is, but what I'm trying to do with liberation is to create a universal substance that everyone can use for their own creating. It's quite irritating. I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah, it's not sure exactly what's going on there. It's okay. Just maybe not like keep the volume steady on your voice a little.
Okay. no, just okay. It's quite distracting. That's really where I've come from. I've come through herbal medicine. I've come through homeopathy. I've come through some of the plant medicine sort of systems in order to look at what substances are most optimal for this process of clearing the human memory, which is really what stands in the way of us being ourselves. I mean, I've noticed with myself as I go through it, I literally get lighter and lighter. I get less and less encumbered. I trip on stuff less and less. You know, certain old interactions, which used to bother me every now and then, like old friendships that went bad, that I used to think about from time to time, I've now processed that stuff. It doesn't surface anymore. It literally doesn't surface. I've made peace with the memory. The person's come up, I've had the interaction, and we've gone our separate ways, and I've literally let that go from my body. The bag of sand has been thrown overboard from the ship, and now the ship is lighter. And like people said to me, oh, if you stop taking it, will you go back to that? It's like, no, the sand has been thrown overboard. It's gone. It cannot come back because it's literally that memory that was stuck in the cells is gone. So we can never return to that dysfunctional state. As I go through it, I mean, I'll talk about the process in a bit more length later, but it's where I am at the process, which is kind of bottle 6 now, is it's processing in dreams stuff with my father who's dying, and you know, having all sorts of interesting kind of teaching dreams with people where I couldn't normally have them in real time, but a lot of the murk of my past, like the mess of my memories, has been cleared. So it doesn't need to. There's none of that to work on. So now it works on, well, okay, what do we want to work on now? What's happening right now in your life that we can actually improve this experience with? And this is what it's doing. I'll often go to sleep with a problem and I'll wake up with the answer, having had a dream where I felt. And this is really the genius of liberation, is that people feel in their body what it feels like to have that experience of forgiving someone or letting go of something. They feel it, and as they feel it in their body on a somatic cellular level, they're actually able to let go. And in that letting go, they really let go of it. I mean, a lot of processing that happens is mental. It's sometimes emotional if you can get to there, but it's not this physical body sensation of like, what does it feel like to really feel the forgiveness or the relief. One woman always used to see her mother in the mist. The mother died. She always used to see the mother in the mist. And then she took liberation on the second day. She was able to hold the mother, give her a big hug, and actually let her go. And in that letting her go, she was able to let go of that memory that she wasn't able to do. And all it took was that hug. She could actually feel her mother in that moment, let her go completely, and then that was gone. So this is the kind of thing that liberation is starting to deal with. Let me just return to one of the questions. The process whereby I've done this is, it's kind of hard to explain. So I'm going to have to speak in metaphors a little bit. But I mean, what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking the frequency and then folding it back upon itself. If you imagine like a ball, a circle, instead of it being an empty circle, I'm sort of filling it like a ball of yarn. I'm kind of winding the yarn all the way through so that when that frequency of, say, the 9 gems or the 5 fires goes into the body, it's a heavy frequency. So you're not just dropping a little pebble into the water. You're taking a grapefruit and you're chucking it into the water. And as you throw it into the water is us. It's having a strong ripple effect out into the body. And this is why people often experience a physical effect even within minutes of taking it, which is why I counsel people to take it 2 hours before sleep so that it actually gives them some time to acclimatize so they can go to sleep. Otherwise, if they take it just before sleep, it might keep them awake. But this is obviously less of a problem during the day, but still a consideration. So it's the analogy I use is like a Japanese sword, where the metal is folded in upon itself to strengthen it, to amplify the frequency, to make it more of a dense structure. You know, when one talks about energetic medicine, it's quite esoteric to begin with. But, you know, this was the discovery, this was quite a tactile thing. And when the first remedy I made was actually like this, was royal jelly. And when I took it, I was like, wow, this is actually stronger than the original. When I made the stronger version of royal jelly, it's actually felt stronger than taking the raw royal jelly. And I was like, wow, I'm actually onto something. I've actually managed to make an energetic format of something which is stronger than the original without any of the concerns about, how much is in there, because it's still obviously an energetic medicine. So it was quite a revolutionary discovery. And I've been playing with this technology around how much I need to take. For example, the royal jelly was very strong. Like the feeling of it was like you burst through the door and you're like, wow, I'm here. And it was like, whoa, tiger. So I mixed in the reishi with it, and the reishi settled it down to allow us more. You come through the door and you open the door and you come into the room, as opposed to bursting through the door. So I've been playing with a lot of the technology of mixing substances so they harmonize nicely to create a more gentle effect. The first version of Liberation I made was it was a much stronger version. It had a lot of I was trying to create a really strong substance, and I did, and it was very strong, and it was almost unpleasantly strong. So that's when I added the royal jelly, the reishi, the light of Jupiter, the protea, just to gentle it, to give it a nice container so that people, when they took it, felt good about themselves. They felt in a good space, and then in that space, they go through the process of shedding of a lot of the karmas. Now, I'd like to say something about this word because it gets thrown around a lot. And I thought I knew it because I'm a Tibetan Buddhist, and I thought I had a pretty good handle on what karma was. But when I started taking the remedy, what I realized was what people don't talk about is the shadow of karma, the other side of the coin, the side that didn't happen. So like, we were in a relationship, the relationship ended badly, and then we move into this fractured space where we never saw what happened. We can always theorize about what might have happened, but we never know. And we're always in this, what if this had happened? What if I'd gotten married? What if I'd left the country? What if my parent hadn't died? What if all these things had happened? And a lot of this stuff is frozen memory. It's literally frozen in the cells because it can't move forward because the event never happened. We can think, maybe I would have, but it's not real because it's just an idea. So a lot of what happened the first few times I took the stronger version of the remedy was it brought a lot of that to the surface. It's like, well, this is what happened when I brought this event to completion. And this is what it felt like. And like, oh, that was nice. That would have been great, but it didn't happen. But I felt it. And in feeling it completely, I was able to let it go. And this, when people talk about reincarnation and whatnot, a lot of it's around like what you did in this life. But what they often don't think about is like what you didn't do. And I think a lot of what happens with there is people, if one believes in reincarnation, but theoretically, if we're running the view that you do, if you come back, you're coming back because you didn't play that out. Because it didn't happen. You didn't marry that girl, or you didn't get that job, or you didn't move to that country, or you didn't die in that war. All of these things, the possibilities of what could have happened. But when we play them out, when we actually play them out and then we feel them in our body, some of the experiences were quite strong. The first few doses I took, the one was like actually my daughter dying, and that was traumatic. It was horrible, but I felt it. And I've always said if she died, I'm not going to continue on this planet. But like I felt it, I knew I could continue. And in that moment, I woke up in total terror, and there she was still alive, it was fine. But the next day I looked into myself and I felt the fear that I had around her dying was gone. So I'd experienced it. So I didn't need it to actually happen. So any fear of that happening, which might have actually generated, was gone. So it actually removed a whole chunk of karma from my existence. And now when I look at that happening, it's not even there. I've played it out, I've been to worst case scenario, and I've let it go. So this is really radical and revolutionary stuff, liberation. There's no way around it. It's a very powerful force. It's a very personal force. It has a lot to do with everyone's story. As I say to people, this is the most personal thing you'll ever do. And it's true. And it's not about me. It's about you guys. Yeah? It's about your story, your taking, what you experience with it. I mean, I've got my own stories and I'll tell my stories. But, when I look at people, there are a lot of similar stories. They go through similar things because I mean, everyone's got trauma. You know, so I guess some people don't, but like, who doesn't? Who doesn't have stuff where we weren't able to finish the emotions, or the emotions got broken, the line got cut, and we're not able to move forward. Now, all of that gets stuck in the cells. As a homeopath, I've seen this before, like in the past, like giving people a remedy, and often the remedy will trigger an event or a memory, and that memory will be located somewhere in the body. So there'll be a pain in the elbow, and somehow the mind was able to stash that memory at a certain place. Now, with liberation, I've designed it to be a very general version of all of that. So I mean, there's probably about 5,000 homeopathic remedies, but you can't obviously give everything to everyone because it's not the way it works. But this is, the substances I've put in liberation are, most of them specifically designed for this purpose. The base is really just the royal jelly, the light of Jupiter, the protea flower, and the reishi is really just designed to hold it, to make people feel good. But the 3 or the 4 power players in this, I might as well go into the formula now because it's kind of relevant, are, you know, for me, the most potent piece in this is the Navaratna, the 9 gems. Now, Navaratna was made in the 3rd century by an enlightened Buddhist alchemist called Nagarjuna. He wrote the Madhyamika, the Middle Way. And so he was very intellectual on the one hand, but then his other side was very technical. I mean, to spend a year, right, where you burn each of these gems, of 9 separate gems, you burn each gem 100 times, right? The amount of time and dedication and commitment it takes to do that. I mean, they still make it according to his original formulation in India. I mean, it takes a year to make this stuff because it's not like, oh, you burn it 5 times and it's enough. No, they go through the process of burning each and every gem 100 times. Then they mix it together with gold and rose water and all sorts of bits and pieces. And then it forms this little pearl, this Navaratna, this 9 gems, which is then ingested. But when I made it into a different substance, it actually becomes stronger because it goes into the what ifs and it goes into the future somehow. It's amplified the field of this. It's strengthened it. It's made it stronger. So this is a real gift from India. The fact that we had access to this technology in the first place is amazing. That the Indians have kept it in place. They've kept the formulation as is for the last 1,700 years, basically, to now, where we're still able to get the original formulation made by an enlightened being for the express purpose of burning up karma. So that's the one ingredient, the 9 gems. Then there's the Panch Agni. Panch in India means 5. Now the 5 fires there's actually 4 fires. The 5th fire is the sun. The 4 fires are lit in like a diamond kind of thing. And in the middle of that sits some poor individual who's going through this purificatory process chanting. So this particular ash that I've gotten is from fires that have been going for the last. Now they swapped the people out. The one guy who did it originally, he did it for like 12 years just by himself, right? I mean, obviously he slept and someone took over, but he did pretty much 12 years continuously in the center of these fires. The fires never went out. When he died or when he moved on, they continued this process. And I believe these fires are still burning today. So it's still a living lineage of this. Now, in the middle of these fires, these guys are chanting the jealousy, the anger, the pride, the 5 emotions, the desire. All of this is being purified while they're doing it. And they're undergoing this process of burning. I mean, it's in Bihar, the state where they do this, which is like 40, 45 degrees most of the time anyway. And in the middle of that, they're in the middle of these fires in the blazing sun. So they're really cooking themselves. Now, obviously, most of us aren't prepared to put ourselves through such extreme privations because, I mean, it just sounds horrible, actually. But, when we take the substance, when I took the 5 fires the first time, when I took the ash, when I made it into this remedy, I got an incredible flush of heat. It's like I felt like the fire's burning in me, and it was like an artificial fever, but it was, I felt lighter. Like one of the things that burns up is jealousy. I felt a lot of my jealousy being burnt up. It's like the fire of the consuming passion of jealousy was just burnt up as I took the stuff. So this is also a very powerful substance, and it represents 50 years of a continued spiritual practice done in a very real-time, event. Like these fires are kept burning by the people, and the fires are still kept fed. And literally, the ash was brought from one of the fires to me by a friend of mine and given to me, and then I made it into the substance, and this is what it does. So these are the two ingredients. Then on to the third one, shungite. Now, shungite is a carbon compound which is found in Russia, and its function is it acts as an electromagnetic shield. So it gives us protection from the sea of Wi-Fi we swim in. It gives us a certain degree of protection from sort of microwave radiation, that kind of stuff. But its main function, and the reason I included it in this remedy, is that it purifies water, right? So you can put a piece of shungite in dirty water, and because of one of the ingredients, something called fullerenes or fullerenes, which is an ancient form of carbon, a form of carbon that's 2 billion years old, that only really exists in meteorites and in this mine, that comes out of this, well, the shungite comes out of the mine, and the fullerenes is in the shungite. So it basically draws a lot of stuff to it. So it actually acts as a bit of a magnet for junk, impurities. So there's the water from this near the shungite mine or the spring is completely pure, because the substance just draws all the impurities out. So when we take it, when we ingest it, I've done the same process of amplifying the molecule to the shungite. When we take it, it basically draws all the impurities to that and then flushes it out. So it allows us to kind of eat the poison and then, shed it, really is what it does. I mean, another aspect of it that I've seen, as it's a shield, when I've brought it through this process, it kind of acts as like an antenna, so it kind of connects everyone through the process. I feel as people take liberation, everyone joins onto this massive wave of light. It's just a vision I have in my head of of liberation. It's like this wave of light. I can see it in my head right behind me. There it is. And everyone's on this, and everyone takes it, links to this. And I think this is a function of one of the more magical, esoteric functions of shungite. When you look at how they talk about it, they talk about shungite as like the miracle stone. And they talk about it as having stuff like giving magical powers or developing your psychic abilities or, clearing and cleansing and healing on all sorts of interesting levels. And I think, the Russian military has recently kind of grabbed the mind because, I mean, it's very good as a substance to shield stuff against electromagnetic attacks. So, I mean, if the Russian military's got their hands on it, it must be good stuff, basically. So, but I mean, the deeper gift to humanity, it's still out there. It can be gotten. Shungite is there, and it's not expensive either. But when water is being increasingly polluted with a whole range of things, to have shungite as a substance around us, just to put in water to clean it, is radical. Now, when we take this substance, because we are 90% water, what it does to us is it filters the blood in a very similar way to the way the kidneys would filter the blood, but on a deeper level. So it's literally looking at all the, I mean, in Chinese medicine, they say blood carries mind. When I heard this statement, it took me a while to digest it. But when I digested it, it's like, that's actually quite a powerful statement. So like the blood is carrying our mind. So it's moving our mind around the body. But as we filter the blood or the water that the blood is made from, we're filtering our mind. We're actually cleaning it of the impurities, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, karmic, hard to say. Once you amplify these substances, they go slightly beyond their original brief, which is why I said this whole thing has really exceeded my expectations. I mean, this whole thing launched in end of January, and I mean, now there's agents in there's like 30 or 40 agents all over the world, and the site hasn't even launched. Just And there's been no marketing. It's literally been word of mouth, people getting interesting, radical, crazy results. I mean, I won't lie, people go through some dark nights of the soul on this, because in the process of clearing, we get brought face to face with a lot of our stuff. It is as gentle as possible. I made that specifically as gentle as possible. I put as much fun, nice, playful, light stuff in as possible, because for me, we've all suffered enough. I certainly have. I literally could not, I could spend it, if I had a choice to not suffer another moment, I would tick that box right now. And this is my gift to liberation, is like, make a substance where the amount of suffering is as minimal as possible. Yes, people have to face their stuff, but it's not like we have to sit in the middle of these 4 fires and cook ourselves and sweat and burn and like get blistered skin. If we can take this substance, transform it and take it internally, and then we can get the same effects as these guys sitting in the middle of the fire, the burning up of the jealousy, the anger, the hatred, all of this stuff, then why not? You know, someone said to me like, oh, but then you're getting rid of karma, you know, you must go through this karma. It's like, well, are people getting liberated from this whole thing, really? Is there not enough of a deluge from ourselves, from our parents, our ancestors, from our society, our culture, our nation, the world, the trauma of the world, the backlog, religion, all of this? It's such a mass of weight that anything that can really help us in this process is a blessing, right? So my answer to people saying like, oh, well, you're kind of cheating. It's like, well, no, you're just getting to a point where you're flushing it to the surface. You can actually deal with it. And once you can deal with it, once it's gone, you're in a better place than you were before. And then you're more able to deal with the other stuff that comes up. I mean, part of the reason I developed this was for myself. I was up to here. I was like, my nose was over here, and I was like, just breathing. There was bills and, you know, commitments and patience and obligations and my daughter and all of it. And I was just getting by, clawing and like, how am I going to make? And then I took the liberation. It's like the water went from there and it went down to here. And it's like, by literally chucking all the stuff overboard. And then it's like, well, okay, well, now I've got more space. I'm lighter, I'm faster, I'm sharper than I was before. I'm less encumbered with the past. I'm not carrying my weight of memory with me all the time. Like, well, what can I do? And like, the answer I came to was like, quite simply, whatever I like. But then this liberation thing started expanding. So I had more to do every day. I mean, I was having this discussion with Solo the other day. It's like, she said, well, I'm wearing all the hats, and I am wearing all the hats. It's like marketing, you know, editing, and I'm doing all this, and somehow I'm managing. You know, I've got more to do each day, but somehow I manage. And when I feel like there's too much to do, I just take another dose and it's like, oh, okay, well, now I get greater capacity to do all of this. And, you know, this is not just me. This is everyone's inheritance. You know, this is everyone's birthright as a human being on this planet, is to live an unencumbered life, unencumbered by the weight of the past. So we're not, you know, painted black by the past. You know, I had this one image of, I had these wings and they were coated black, like with black, like tar. And like, as I was taking it, all this tar was leaving the wings. The other image was the boat, and I was just throwing stuff over the sides of the boat. And as I did it, I was rising higher in the water. Now, you know, what excites me about this, and why I see this as needing to go to the 4 corners of the earth, is that as everyone gets lighter and less encumbered and more open-hearted, they automatically make better decisions. They make better decisions with the environment, with their life, with their community, with their family. I mean, I've literally repatterned my interaction with both my father and my sister. Before, it was like completely dysfunctional, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And I literally sat them both down. They weren't happy about it, but I literally changed it. They screamed and shouted a bit, and like, but then they were quite happy with it afterwards. I literally treated them like, okay, this isn't working. We're going to do it this way. They screamed and they shouted, and now it's fine. Now the interaction's much better. You know, I took the position of the adult. I corrected stuff that was dysfunctional because I felt in my heart it was just a bad interaction. And now it's more functional. But I had the space. You know, in Buddhism, they talk a lot about this thing called the bardo, which is a space between things. It can be a space between moments, between events, whatever. But what this does, liberation has given me, it gives me this moment before I go into reaction. So it's like, okay, but do I want to react like this? And then the answer is actually no, I don't like that interaction. So now I'm going to change it over here, and then I'm going to have a different interaction. And this is what I've been able to do a lot of the time. It's not absolute. I mean, it's always work in progress. No one's perfect. But I mean, from where I've come from to where I am now, it's light years ahead. I'm literally able to step back. Before I'd be like, jump in, get involved, get all wild and cranky and crazy. And it's like, I'm able to step back from that a lot of the time now. Or like, even if I do, I'm able to pull myself back. And that is really a blessing. And that's because there's more space. And I'm not running all these old patterns of like, you know, that Pavlovian thing of like, oh, ring the bell, the rat runs through the maze to get the food. Now it's like, ring the bell, and the rat's like, well, actually, I'm not hungry. I actually want to go play with my friends over there. I'm not going to do it a conditioned response because I'm not conditioned anymore. I'm not having this automatic response based on what I did before. And people still want you to play stuff in the traditional way. I mean, family is a great example. They expect you to behave in a particular way. But when you stop behaving like that, you buy out of the equation, then it frees us to create a new paradigm. Now, this is interesting on a micro level with family, but when you extend this and extrapolate it to the world on a macro level, if we all consume this substance and get to the point where we're actually able to repattern the world, it's like, well, okay, we don't like it. Now let's all sit down and find a way forward. Let's move beyond this. And this is my like, okay, spread it to the four corners. There's actually a vision I had of like going up and out. It's like, if it gets to the four corners and people stop playing the blame game or the anger game or the like, you stole my territory, we must go to war with you game, or all these kind of dysfunctional games that we can actually, there is enough for everyone in this whole movie. And if people aren't coming from a point of lack, then everything changes. I mean, now I take the view that there's automatically more than enough for everyone. And this has now become my default state because this is what I've been feeling. I mean, liberation is economically, it's freed me a lot as well. I see a lot less patients now because I'm so busy with liberation because it's just taken off in its own sense. And it's really a pleasure to bring it to the world, the substance that, I mean, is really 20 years of work one way or another. I mean, the final formulation, I kind of, as I was swimming, I swim like 40 lengths of a pool just as my daily exercise. As I was swimming, some of my best thinking happens as I was swimming. As I was swimming, it's like all the pieces of this puzzle just kind of came together. And it's like, okay, here was this, it was like a 3D sculpture, energetic sculpture, and all the pieces were put into place. It's like, okay, and I knew that was the structure. I knew that what it was. And I came home, I put on my blog, Homeopathic Secrets, and that night someone came and actually bought the first bottle. And it was like, she took it. And it's like, okay, this is now actually a business. I can actually make this as a substance. And I started testing it like that. And then, it's like, wow, this is really beautiful what it's doing. And it's, a lot of people who haven't taken it like, oh yeah, you claim this. And my statement to them is like, try it, see what it does to you. Like, because I have a lot of faith in this product because I've just seen what it's done for myself and for many people. Now, there might be like the 1%ers where it doesn't work. And I believe certain people can block anything. They can block a chemotherapy drug. They can block anything with their minds if they don't want on a certain level for it to work. The people who think, well, no, this is too easy. Like, oh, you're just going to take this substance and all your problems are going to go away. It's like, it's not that. It's not that at all. Yes, your problems might go away and probably will go away, but as a function of you being more functional and more able to take them on, it's like, okay, well, now I feel I have the capacity to deal with these problems. I'm going to dive in and I'm going to engage them. I'm not going to be like, oh, no, dude, I'm just going to sit and watch Netflix and pretend the problems are going to go away. It's like, no, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to engage them. And then it becomes fun. And I mean, everyone has their means of compensation of like avoidance. But, I didn't even have to discipline myself for this. It was like, now I wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, it's like rearing to work. It's like, okay, well, what do I got to do now? Okay, let's start on the day's activities. Before I would have looked at that, it's like, not in a million years am I going to willingly wake up at 5 o'clock and choose to get out of bed and want to work. And now it's a pleasure. Yeah. So that's been radical. Just the need for less sleep, increased focus, greater energy, greater concentration, better problem resolving skills. And this is not like superpowers that the substance is giving us. This is all a byproduct of the fact that you're just less encumbered. So it means that this organism, this human organism, works better. It works as it should, on a very basic level. It's nothing magical. It's literally just once you clear away the rubble, okay, now everything can connect properly. Then you're in alignment with your will. You're not playing the past patterns of he done me wrong, or she pissed me off, or they did this. All of those stories just kind of go away. And people sort of want to play them a little bit with me. And I'm like, I'm just don't do that anymore. It's like, if you want to play that, there's plenty of people out there who play that with people if they want to. But I'm not playing that anymore. And as a result, I find less and less of those things happening in my reality. Now it's more people who really want to engage. They'll come to me in that mood. As my experience becomes more positive, so my experience of reality becomes more positive. And that's a beautiful thing. But it's not just for me. This is everyone's inheritance as a human being on this planet. I feel this very strongly. Part of, in Buddhism, they talk about the Bodhisattva Vow. Now, Bodhisattva means enlightenment warrior. Now, the enlightenment warrior, their commitment is, I will not take liberation liberation, like final liberation, enlightenment, until everyone is liberated. Yeah. Now, I used to take this quite seriously, and I still do on some levels. It's like, it's not that I'm not going to leave until everyone else has left, but it's also like, if people are still suffering out there, how can I then sit in comfort with my daughter, like by a pool, eating a burger? It's just, somehow it's wrong. If I have it within me, my ability to somehow bring this view or this substance, in this case, to people, which will liberate them from the suffering they're going through, then absolutely. I mean, one of the things someone said to me is like, you're becoming a guru. It's like, no. If anything's the guru, the remover of darkness, it's the substance. The substance is there to remove the darkness from people. And all it is like to take it and to clear away the cobwebs of the self. That's literally all it does. If anything, I'm just the ringmaster in the circus here. I'm just kind of keeping everything in place, because I love this whole process so much. And it really, it's such a beautiful thing watching everyone sharing their process of like what they're going through. And I learned so much about the nature of the mind, of people's experience, of how they experience themselves, their reality, what they trip on. I mean, there's some meaty stuff out there. Everyone's got skeletons in their closet. If not personal skeletons, it could be family skeletons that gets handed down. I mean, I see this a lot. The statement, the sins of the fathers will be visited upon the children for 3 generations. And it's not sins, it's just literally the imprints of behavior. Sort of, if the parents are alcoholics or whatever, they bring this level of madness to the children might have it as like a suicidal or homicidal tendency. This is what we get born into with good environment. We can move beyond that to some extent, but we all get some inheritance, some genetic inheritance from our parents. We get some environmental inheritance from where we grow up. I grew up here in South Africa, which is there's a lot of tension on many levels. So there's a lot of mess, and people says there's a lot of trauma, but every country has it in different ways, so no one gets exempt from this. And what I find very interesting is how liberation sort of moves out in the different communities and how each country embraces it, because everyone will embrace it in their own way. I expect the Americans to be more gung-ho about it. The British are slightly more reserved about it. The Italians, I'm sure, will be quite loud about it. But I mean, it's beautiful to see everyone expressing their natural state with it and just going through it. The South Africans are quite down to earth with it. They're like, okay, cool, I'm actually enjoying this, making my life better. I love it, I've got this old woman who comes around and she gets a bottle. It's like, she just gives me a smile. She just keeps buying bottles from me. It's like, what do you get from it? She just smiles at me and just keeps buying the bottle. And what she gets from it is her business. That's her business. Why she takes it, why she likes it, who knows? You know, maybe it makes her sleep better. Maybe it lets her let go of the past from childhood or deal with her children better. I'm not sure. She just smiles at me and keeps buying bottles. So I do encourage people to share in the group, Liberation the Remedy, if people aren't in the group already, because it shows us what this remedy can be used for. I mean, one of the women asked me, could she give it to a dog? And I was originally like, okay, I don't know, maybe, I guess so. This is how you would do it. And she gave it to this dog who'd been a rescue dog from Romania. She was in Germany. And then it totally changed this dog's behavior. The dog, from being like a kind of slightly neurotic or fearful dog, started playing with other dogs, and then we came to her more. It was beautiful to see. I hadn't anticipated this. I was slightly nervous about even suggesting it. But, you know, if the trauma to the dog was as a result of, you know, their traumatic upbringing, and one's able to clear that, then it becomes it was an easy fix. And I took 2 or 3 doses with the dog. I mean, as humans were slightly more complex. You know, often everyone on the first bottle is quite like, whoa, rah, 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 amazing, amazing. Second bottle, it gets a bit meatier. Third bottle, sometimes even meatier. But by the 4th bottle, you know, you've cleared a lot of the rubble. And then everything kind of comes back online, and things really start moving very quickly and easily. You know, like one of my things is like, go to sleep with a problem, wake up with an answer. And this is not something I even do deliberately. It's like I have something I'm suddenly worried about at night, and I'll wake up, I have the dream, and I'll feel it in my cells, I'll know it's fine, and then from that cellular memory of what just happened, I'm able to like use that as a red thread to draw myself through to the outcome. And that it's easy. I've tasted, I know what it feels like. You know, my old business partner, he had a successful business, and he knew what it was like to be rich. And I was like, he was just describing it on a cellular level. And it's like, from that experience of him being rich, I was able to like almost taste it. And this is what liberation kind of does. It allows us to taste the feelings of what it feels like to be happy, to be joyful, to be abundant, to be wealthy, to be whatever it takes, and then use these memories, these cellular memories, to move forward into the world to create whatever it is we want to create. And what we create, I mean, you know, if there was ever a time when everything's in crisis, I mean, in terms of population, weather, war, you know, there's the seas full of plastic. There's so much stuff to be remedied now, to be sorted now, that we really need all our resources, our mental and emotional resources at our disposal at all times, so we can actually go out each day feeling optimistic. You know, it's very easy in this day and age to fall prey to nihilism, to like, oh, what's the point? It's all going to end. It's all screwed. You know, the fish are dying. You know, the plastic. You know, the whales. You know, all of this. But it's like that doesn't help. I've been there, and I know that doesn't go anywhere. It's like, well, okay, yes, there's a problem. Now let's find a way through. Let's find a way out of this whole thing. Let's find a way to make this actually a better place instead of just talking about it. You know, this is what I believe this remedy is. I went to, someone was giving me a massage the other day, and I gave her a bottle, and she said, what is this? I said, well, this is the future. And then she laughed kind of nervously, and it's like, okay. And I was like, yes, this is the future. It's like the future of, I don't want to say medicine, because we don't want to imply that we're treating anything here, but the future of human consciousness. It's the future of like how we will deal with stuff. It's like, if you clean out an engine, it automatically runs better. You know, if there's gunge and there's oil and stuff isn't working properly, the whole thing's not going to run. Now, regardless of the age, if you give something a good out on a very deep level, then everything will work properly. There's so much intelligence in the human mind-body complex. It's such an intelligent thing. Like, in spite of all the rubbish we throw at ourselves in terms of toxins and pollutants, and from the lead in the petrol to the, you know, caffeine, nicotine, drugs, you know, bad food, junk food, all of this stuff. And like, in spite of that, people are still living to be 80, 90 years of age. So what would it look like if we were able to clear out a lot of these self-destructive patterns which cause us to do these bad things to ourselves in the first place? We don't need to traumatize ourselves just to escape from ourselves. You know, I have no need to. I mean, I was at a children's party yesterday, and like all the parents are talking about drinking. It's like, God, you guys like 12 or you 18 or 21? It's like, I mean, really, you still get excited about that? I mean, it doesn't mean I don't enjoy a glass of wine, yeah, but you know, to almost like to not move beyond to the higher pleasures of the mind, and you know how this whole thing connects and the beauty of what's around us at all times. It was a bit sad to look at, like, okay, well, are you still there? It's like time to evolve. Like, I mean, I don't want to come from a judgmental space, and I don't generally, because you know, being a parent is a work in itself. But you know, when I look at the human potential of what we're capable of as humans, as organisms, as a species, and then I look at what a lot of people are doing with their time on this planet, I know that if they take liberation, their experience of themselves and their environment will change. Because if you're playing with all your cards and all your energy can be focused at one time on one thing, you can really, I mean, what I used to spend 3-4 days doing, I can now happily do in a day, because I can just pull my focus so accurately on one thing, and it's understood. I'm not disturbed. I'm not disturbed by myself. I'm not getting this like knock, knock, knock. Think about Johnny. He, you know, stole your football when you were 12. Rubbish, you know, or like, I've got to do this, and I don't want to do all this kind of stuff that we normally have that disturbs our concentration. Just really isn't there. If something comes in, I'll deal with it, and then it moves through. And this is everyone's right. This is what liberation can do for everyone. I mean, I stand by this statement. I do believe this is the case. As we get lighter in ourselves, there's less abstraction, which means whatever happens fast, it happens better, it happens quicker. The innate ability of the body to manifest whatever it is we want will just play through more quickly. And in that space, well, you know, the other thing I've noticed is with this is a lot of my constriction with reality, a lot of my tension around myself, my environment, everything has disappeared. So now, if I'm in an open space, I'm automatically bringing more abundance to my experience, to my reality, and then it ricochets back to me. So it's like, it's a knock-on effect. And I see the people taking liberation as they come into the world in a more open space. It's setting a paradigm for a way we can actually be upon this planet. Now, it's a big thing. And like a lot of people talk about change the world, blah, 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 blah. But ourselves, and we change the environment we live in by changing the way we interact with everyone. We're setting up new chains of possibility. We're setting up new ways of being. And, you know, when people look at it, it's like, well, that guy's enjoying himself a lot, or he's quite happy, or he's quite functional. They're like, okay, well, what's he doing that we're not doing? It's like, well, hard to say, but okay, he's taking that substance, and that, what's it doing? And it's like, eventually, I believe this will end up in the sports arena, you know, because as sportsmen have less rubble in their heads, they'll be more functional. You know, anyone who's wants to improve their performance, you know, on any level, just as a human being, to be a better whatever. I'm a better parent now than I was. And parenting is probably the toughest thing I've ever had to do. And I've done some pretty tough things, but to be a good parent is a thing, and it's important. And if you don't do it properly, you know, there's a whole world of guilt and, like, you know, crazy children on your hands. So it's like, this has allowed me to step back from the intensity of the crazy child, crazy me. Okay, to step back from it and say, okay, let's work with this. Let's make this work for both of us. And it has actually done that. And if we can do that, it can do anything, because that's possibly the hardest interaction we'll ever have, is the one with your child. It's a beautiful thing, but it's very challenging, because it's very direct. It's in your face. You have full responsibility for the child all the time. And liberation has made me a better parent. I do, yeah?
Sorry, I just cut out on me there, but that was great. Made my job quite easy just to go through all those questions, so thank you. Oh, this is wonderful. Well, I think it'd be a good time because I feel you covered a lot, and you know, every time I had something to reflect on, you went into the next piece that covered it. So I have nothing to share really, other than I mean, a gratitude for your work with this, because you know, the one thing that did stick out, which is again the supporting nature of the accelerated path that's available at this time for those that are really willing and open and truly desiring it above everything else. And that's what tools like liberation will come into one's field or one's reality at the time in which they recognize, okay, I'm willing and I desire truth, or I desire, you know, liberation above all else, right? And and so yeah, that's a big piece, because you know, your mention on the comments regarding it being kind of a cheat code, or you know, it's too good to be true, or these things. I mean, it's something that in my space I've also reflected in other tools as a common theme. It's a common voice of unworthiness that comes from individuals who feel that they're not worthy of an easeful path, an effortless way, you know, a tool in which can really expedite the mindset that spiritual seeking or liberation or whatever has to take, you know, a lifetime, if not further lifetimes, you know. And it's really the time in which that it had its truth, but it, you know, it's evolved to fit what we're currently facing, you know, like you're saying, the crisis and the change that really needs our attention. So
just one more thing there, because it's quite an important point, where I see liberation moving well beyond the field of seekers or conscious individuals, or you know, into the family structure. I mean, a lot of people are feeding it to their families, and people are not necessarily that conscious or really desiring liberation, or just taking it because, you know, their families are getting results, whether it's parents or grandparents. And you know what's parents who know nothing really about it, they're just taking on the say-so of their children, are like going through major processes of letting go of a lot of the junk from the past. And this means that family interactions overall are becoming better. They're becoming less fraught with, remember when you were 20, you did, and they're still holding on to that, or like Uncle Joey got drunk and there was, and all of this is now being laid to rest. And people, I argue, inherently want to lay this to rest. And when you give it to them and it allows them to lay it to rest, it's also a relief to lay down these burdens, because no one wants to live in a state of tension or constriction. So I definitely see the field of liberation moving far beyond the people who desire, you know, fast into the more moderate field of people who just really want to have a good, happy life, and like want to love their children and just live every day to the fullest expression of their ability. And like that for me is beautiful. That's sometimes the simple life well lived is better than many things. You know, I look at, you know, a lot of the old ways, you know, going back, you know, one thinks of, you know, the peasant farmers who, like, you know, they make their wine and they have their grapes and they grind their bread and like they have a good life. And like, that's beautiful too. You know, I think a lot of what's happened is we've removed ourselves so much from the meat and bone of reality, the actual doing of the stuff of life, that the growing of the plants. And I think a lot of the healing exists there. But, you know, even within those environments, there's still stuff. There's family feuds. There's a lot of history. You know, there's war-torn areas. I mean, it hasn't gotten to any of the really war-torn areas yet. I mean, liberation, but it must get there, because there's a lot of residual karmic rubble in these places. Now every country has their messy history, but some of them that are kind of in process right now really possibly need it even more, so that the people can start to rebuild, because it's very hard to rebuild when you're still in a sort of post-traumatic stress state. But if you can get people to the point where they're not feeling that day to day, then they can actually start to rebuild, which is what we're all after. Yeah. Reflect on that.
Yep, you got it. Well, the simple piece on living the natural life, I think that's the beauty of what liberation is making available for so many, is just that it's just a return to the natural essence of just this moment, you know, and and like you're saying, you know, like these abilities that you access, you know, being able to work so much and have memory and focus and parenting, like this is not supernatural. This is the natural state. This is what we have access to at any point, if you know, if we're willing to let go of the blinders, you know. So yeah, I love that piece there. Maybe we can open for if there's any questions, further questions from any, either on Facebook or on the Zoom. For those on Zoom, you can make a comment. Either you can ask it, or if you want to go on video and I can unmute you and you can share. Even if it's just something you'd like to share, that'd be great. You know, we can go with that. I'll check Facebook to see how this is unfolding here and there. But yeah, if there's anyone would like to share, then this would be the time.
Hello, hi, I'm Mia. I just wanted to share, like, just share some of my experience, if that's helpful.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. I found on the first bottle, the first time I took liberation, my dreams were really, really intense, really profound. But also I found that I literally couldn't speak my truth. I couldn't not speak my truth. So there were things I needed to say and things that I was feeling before, and there was like no option to not speak my truth. And I was just finding that it was just coming out of my mouth, and things that were happening, on a day-to-day in relationship, my intimate relationship, and mostly to do with that was just, there was no way that whatever was happening wasn't going to be resolved in some way, a quicker way. So I experienced that a lot on the first bottle, and dreams that feel complete and light. So when you wake up, before when I was dreaming, I've always had very intense dreams, and but dreams would leave me feeling kind of like empty or confused, or kind of like lost somehow. So I find since I've been dreaming with the liberation, that the dreams complete themselves, so you feel whole when you wake up. There's a sense of like wholeness and lightness from the dreaming, rather than like whoa, like heavy craziness that makes you feel kind of empty and weird. So yeah, I've experienced that, and yeah, some old traumas coming up that I've had to look at and deal with and feel, which hasn't always been easy. And then in the dreams as well, dreaming of definitely like ex-lovers or people that would have maybe been lovers, like just sifting through them all, you know, through the dreams, and like, oh, that person came into my dream. I hadn't thought about them in a while. And it was that sense of like, yeah, something would happen in the dream that hadn't happened in life. And then this sense of like peace afterwards upon waking. So that's what I can say for now. So I love it, and things have been easier in life. I think in general, I feel less tense and more kind of in the flow with my surroundings, and things have been manifesting and kind of fruiting and kind of more easy, which I feel is from within, a reflection of how I am within. So yeah, thank you so much, Adam, for creating it.
Yeah, beautiful sharing. Yeah. Just one thing I want to mention, I forgot to mention it. The mantra. Now, Kunjika it's an aspect of Kali called Durga, and she comes down the mountain riding the tiger. Now, it's a semi-ruthless state, but it's like, as everything comes before it, it's like taking no nonsense from reality. Now, like when you talk about that, having to speak your truth, it almost coming out your mouth, that's that remedy. It's that frequency of like, I'm just going to say, talk about their different experiences, I'm able to like piece together which is which piece, and that's definitely that piece. But at this time, and it can be resolved. If it's inside, it doesn't go anywhere. So that's the beauty of that particular mantra. The guy friend of mine who did it, he chanted that mantra 10 million times. I mean, in order to get it to the point where he could call the mantra, he had enough ability with his sound to like literally call it down and then imprint it onto water. And when I took it, I was like, whew, the path cleared before me. It was quite noticeable. So it was like, I mean, I'm not even counting in terms of like the 70 years, the probably 5 years it took him to get to the point with that mantra where he was able to call it in the sense of he was actually able to bring it in as a living thing into form. And like, yeah, but that's that, just as an aside. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Nia. Maybe if there's anyone else who wants to share anything or ask any specific questions, I'm happy, Adam, that you went through the depth in each ingredient, because I'm interested in that, and I think it definitely gave a deeper perspective, and maybe in a sense, for me, it ignites a sense of like a humble nature and a respect for the power of the tool. And because like you're saying, like it's not only 20 years of your own work, but it's so many more years of others' work, and other involves the lineages, and there's so much connected to it, and again, I think that brings a certain clarity and a very direct answer to anyone who believes this to be kind of like a cheat code or a something that is too good to be true. There's so much backing it, there's so much energy behind it that and like all things that are simple, there's a certain complexity that's behind it. So that's why it stays simple, so that we don't lose anyone in the complexity. So it's funny. I like that.
But yeah, it's got a lot of serious lineage backing in terms of, a lot of it's from the Vedic, but some is from the Buddhist. Nagarjuna was a Buddhist. So it's that whole lineage. But then it's, bits from, I think the royal jelly was somewhere in Europe. It might have been even in France. The light of Jupiter was made by a bunch of Russian homeopaths. Actually, they focused the telescope for the entire night on Jupiter, and then as Jupiter moved through the sky, the light from the telescope came through the telescope into a bowl of water. They then took it and they made this into a remedy. They then took it to see what it did, and what it generated was a sense of feasting and abundance. It was like, more vodka, bring on more food, bring the musicians. There's a sense of just celebration, right? Celebration with life. And that's why I incorporated this into it, because it really gives the feeling of life doesn't have to be a trial or a hassle. It can be a celebration. It can be a beautiful thing at all times. When it's, after taking that particular substance for a while, I became a better person. I was more willing to engage people on the street because I was just more open. I just felt more expansive. So I'd actually go out and actually be more engaged with reality, where before I'd be quite aloof. And now I talk to anyone at any time. It's like before I'd be like, oh, no, I don't even think about it. It's like Nia was saying, she just speak with me. Now I just engage. I don't even think about it. It's just become part of who I am now, which is just great, because we're not spectators in this life, we're participants. And it's part of what we get by participating is we learn all sorts of things by engaging people. If we don't engage someone, you'll never know what they had to say or what they were going to do, or the arbitrary person you start chatting to at the bus stand. It's like, that goes, you never know. But until you've engaged, then something beautiful might come out of it. So that's the gift of the light of Jupiter.
Nice. There's a question here from Glenn. It's regards to a more practical question regarding the dosage, in regards to what are the recommended dosage instructions and how many drops, etc. And I think this could also tie into potentially, obviously you mentioned for a lot of people taking it before bed, so it's working through the dreams. Maybe that makes things a little bit easier. But, you know, you've mentioned many times in the group to many about the intuitive nature of dosage and how to flow with your own personal space. So maybe touching on that would be nice.
Okay. Well, I mean, what I suggest is for the first week on taking it is to take it at about 8 p.m. I mean, whenever you go to bed, take it 2 hours before you go to bed, to give your body some time to acclimatize, because it's quite a complex structure and it's going into your body and starting all sorts of processes of realignment and clearing. So some people report it keeps them awake, and if that's the case, then just take it during the day. After a week, I recommend people to start taking it during the day, because a lot of the stuff of life is dealing with people every day. So it allows people to realign with, you know, a lot of the stuff in their workplace or their friends or social interactions or whatever it is, wherever they're doing in the day. It allows, you know, whenever I take it during the day, people will pop up, almost like the Truman Show. Like, oh, this person's coming up in order for me to deal with this person. And it allows me a chance to form a new pattern with that person. If I don't like it, I can move it, or I can keep it as it is. But there's no right or wrong with taking it. It really is a question of what. The reason I said take it at night to start with is that it tends to deal with the meatiest, heaviest stuff in the beginning. So the more pressing emotional baggage or residue is often right at the forefront, so that'll tend to be dealt with. So the heavier stuff that you might not want to deal with during the day is often better dealt with in your dreams, because then it's dealt with in your dreams, you can play it out, and then you can move forward. You know, some people take it twice a day. They're the twice a day crew. There's a whole crew that does it twice a day. They like doing that. They do it day and night. Sometimes they can be a bit strong for people. So I once again counsel taking it as you feel it. I mean, I know if I take it, I generally take it in the morning now myself, because then it runs through the day and then I kind of go into dreams. If I take it later on in the afternoon, I'm still quite awake late at night, and it's not necessarily ideal. But that's, I personally don't take it at night anymore, because often the effect during the day will carry on to the night anyway. But it really, it's essentially, if you imagine, I'm using the grapefruit analogy again. If you drop or you throw the grapefruit into the water, it creates these ripples that go out. Now, how long the ripples last or how far they go is very much dependent on what's in the pond. So, for example, if you have a lot of big tree stumps and rocks and rubble in the pond, the ripples are going to hit that and sort of be broken. But if there's less in the pond, the ripples will go further. Yeah. This is why certain people with a lot of traumatic stuff might require more, or, you know, the sensitive people often require less. They might have a dose every second day, or some people play with the drops. You know, they take like 5 drops or 2 drops, and that seems to work with them. But, you know, I think on a very deep level, it's important to come back to our trusting of our body's intuitive knowing around what is actually good for us. Some people muscle test. You know, they'll do the muscle testing and see how many drops they should take or how often a day. Some people just sit with it and they feel called to take it in the morning or in the evening or twice a day or once a day. And it's, you know, I'm just giving guidelines. I'm giving guidelines based on what I've found to be useful for me, and some people have found to be useful. But given that, it's just, you know, it's like a car. You know, you learn how to drive and then you drive it how you want to drive it. You know, it's like, it's your car, you drive it the way you feel is right for you. And this is very much the same with liberation. How you approach this process and how fast or slowly you make the process occur is entirely up to you. If people are going through a lot of stuff and it's quite intense, I do suggest they back off of it. They go once every second day. If nothing's really happening, they can go twice a day. I don't really advocate taking more than 3 times a day, because I think it's too much. You know, because it's like, you know, we often look at 2 gradients, an X and a Y gradient. Now the vertical gradient will be rapid, and the horizontal one will be gentle. But we can make it really rapid, which will be often quite unpleasant, because it's like, or really gentle, which means it's quite slow. But if we get the X and Y just right, we can find the right gradient for us. So we can make this process cruise at whatever speed we feel most comfortable. Now, this is not a race, because you're not racing against anyone except yourself. And like, why are you racing against yourself anyway? Unless you, some people have the urge, you know, some people get quite competitive about like, oh, I want to get it through quickly and like get it done. It's like, no, it's not like that. It's like, this is your personal process, which you're savoring, because you're not going to have to go back through this again. There's no rush. I also used to be very gung-ho with this. I've never taken this more than twice a day, but I only did that a couple of days. But now I'm kind of savoring the process. Like, I'll throw a stone in the water and it'll ripple. And then, okay, the ripple goes down. And I went through a stage of bottle 5 where I used to only take every 4 or 5 days. I didn't feel the need. Now, as the site comes closer to launch and there's more and more to do, I take it more frequently. I'm back on it daily. And it's giving me greater capacity. It's working through some stuff. My father's dying, so I'm working through stuff in my dreams with him. It's given me all sorts of other abilities with that as well. So, but it's how I've felt to do it. I mean, at one stage I was doing, and so, okay, I don't need this every day anymore. And then I slowed it down, and now I've started again. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm basically on bottle 6, which is pretty much as far as anyone's gone with this. I'll probably take this maybe forever, maybe not. I mean, maybe I'll get to the point where I'll just take it every week or so, just a dose, just to taste that space again and move through it. I do find the times of greater intensity, where there's a lot going on and there's more demanded from us, it's quite useful to keep with the regular dosing, because it does increase our capacity by removing a lot of the rubble. So that's important to remember as well, that if things are really coming down around your ears, liberation is your friend. And when things are kind of cruising, there's not as much to do, you might need to take less. But, you know, like with life, it's like certain things will work for you and they might work better for you than for other people, and we can share our experiences, and this is what the group is about, for people to share their experiences of what works and what doesn't work. And you know, as I said, a lot of the supplementary things around people having, you know, support structures whereby they can counsel each other and talk to each other and just have an ear, you know, or make sure you get enough exercise, enough sleep, you don't push yourself, you don't go too crazy with whatever you're doing, just to be gentle with yourself during this time, because it's a very beautiful time. It's literally the review of your life, in order to get to the point where you've reviewed it to the point where you're not carrying that stuff. And now, like, okay, well, now I'm like, I don't want to say born again, because that has all sorts of weird connotations, but it's like, I'm clear of the past. And now, well, okay, now me as an individual, I'm going out into the world doing what I'm doing. And what do I choose to do? Well, whatever I like. What do I like to do? And if people don't know what they like to do, go back to your childhood and think of what you like to do then, and think, remember that. Like, put something into the head to get the whole thing moving. I mean, this is a big substance. You know, and I think we're seeing, as we move through, we're seeing how big this substance actually is. Like how large an effect it is having on the consciousness of the people who are taking it. And that's very exciting. It's also important that people stay in contact with each other, you know, in terms of the group, and they share what's going on, because often someone will have been through it, they will have had that experience, and they'll be able to give insight into what they did at this point, or just give them like a pat on the shoulder. It's like, oh, it'll be fine, just keep going another couple of days. No, it does. Another couple of days, they're through it. You know, they might go through some people are processing some pretty heavy, like the weight of the world and the density of reality and like all that kind of really heavy, gnarly, murky stuff. And this is, you know, when people know that they're not alone in this, they're like, okay, everyone's there, we're there to support. It's like, okay, here's an ear, here's a place to talk about it. It's like, you're not unusual in this. It's also been experienced by other people, and this is how they dealt with it. And that's beautiful. It's like we're here painting the wall of human experience together, and that's really what the group has been. And it's gone from, since January, to like 1,100 members, and there's been some amazing stuff on there, really beautiful, amazing stuff, unexpected. Some's been hectic, and some people have gone through some interesting stuff, but on the whole, it's been a very positive human experience of what we as a collective, as a group of human beings are going through. And that's amazing. It's beautiful. It warms my heart. Yeah. It's like what it's about. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Well, I don't see any other questions. So if there are any, I mean, obviously you have a chance to continue asking those. But I mean, at least set the initial intention to kind of close this call and this chat. I mean, we have the website we've been so tirelessly working on, so it's been fun. Now that's coming to a launch. I mean, we can link that for those who want to take a kind of a peek at it. There's still some things we're finishing there. But is there anything else that you want to kind of share, Adam? Obviously, everyone mostly is connected obviously with the Facebook group, so that's a great place for the community to gather. Website is another component to that will be another doorway and gateway for the world to see. And if there's anything else you want to share, Adam, or anybody else.
I think just from a practical level, I mean, a lot of the information I've gone through here is on the site. Some I haven't. Some I've incorporated here that isn't on the site because obviously the brief of it. But what's particularly interesting on the site is the distributor list. So if you're not in North America or Canada, there are distributors now in a lot of the countries. I mean, more are coming on all the time. So, contact these people if you want liberation in whatever country you're in. And we're always looking for more distributors in countries that haven't joined. So if you feel called to do this, get hold of me or get hold of one of the distributors in the country and make contact with them. And one of the other visions I had of this is like this giant mycelial network, like nodes, moving out and all connecting together, like this giant grid of light spreading. Part of it is about the community, connecting in with each other, bringing everyone in. Like we've all felt like the black sheep at some point, and like we're all being brought in out of the cold now into the arena, and the arena is the arena of light. And we're all in there connecting and holding each other in this experience. And that for me is real community. I've heard people talk about community, but like when I look at what's coming out of this community, I've really felt that this is a community, and like it's the community of our shared human experience. And it's a place for people to share that and share their triumphs, their fears, their failures, all of that, and be heard and held, and to create something new from that. And often, with my patients, they'll say like often just the speaking of it is enough. That's part of the healing of it. And I reflect on that. I mean, obviously they get, remedies as well, but often if they just have an ear, if they just have a place where they can say it, the very saying of it is highly therapeutic. And then people who are like afraid to share, and then they share in the group, and then everyone comes in with massive support and like massive, and the person's almost overwhelmed by it. It's like, oh wow, I was so afraid to share, and then they do it, and it opens up, it creates something very beautiful. So yeah, just to encourage people to share in the group, because it feeds the fires of liberation. It keeps it glowing brightly, and it also reflects, the colors in the cave. We actually get to see more of, what this human experience that we're going through actually is. And I mean, I get a lot of insights from that, how people process information, the nature of trauma, the nature of healing. It's been a real eye-opener, and it's been a beautiful thing generally. So anyone who's not in the group, please join the group. We'll approve you. And yeah, just know that there's probably soon going to be a distributor in your country. And if not, then just go to the nearest country to you to get the remedy. So yeah, as I said, we're hopefully going to launch, mid next week. People can have a sneak peek at the site for now. In terms of if they want to get product, the distributors are all there, so they can get from there. Most of the stuff is done. I haven't uploaded the final video testimonials yet, but they've been made, so they should be uploaded quite shortly. So most of it's there. Yeah. And the rest is really word of mouth. That's really how this whole thing has spread thus far, and will probably continue to spread. So once once it's up, if everyone can just share the site to the four corners of the earth, then we can actually make this world a better place. Yeah, in real time, in an absolute sense. I truly believe that. And I mean, I'm not one prone to cheesy sayings, because I'm quite a realist. I'm quite a hardcore realist in my own way. I'm an idealist in another way, but like, from dealing with people's trauma as a homeopathic doctor for the last 20 years, it's like you see that trauma is real, but healing is also real as well. And as people become more whole, they do make the world around them a better place. And the more that happens, then the weight of it rolls on, and then we can actually create something, a world we really want to live in. And that's, I mean, I've got a 6-year-old daughter, so that's a very major thing for me, to like have an environment where she is happy and safe and protected and loved. And like, that's, yeah, as a parent, to create that world, there's very little I wouldn't do to bring that into form. And here is a substance which has the potential to help to do that. So, and that for me is very exciting. That gives me hope. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks, Adam.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for everyone being here. It's
thank you guys.
Thank
you, Corey. Thank you for hosting this.
Yeah, much love to all of you, and check out the group website and stay connected. And yeah, I'm sure we'll connect soon. Much love.
Cool. Great.